I'd ask you to please be brief in your questions. Maybe just briefly introduce yourself. Let's try, 10, 20 seconds. We can take 2 or 3 together. Then you can give a response, and then I think your colleague will give us the signal when we need to head out. Let's start maybe here. Ladies first, and then we'll try again. Very brief, and let's collect 3 or 4 if we can.
Hello, my name is Mankanje Brown from the USA, and I just wanted to ask, how do we counter isolationism or protectionism, especially from the USA, that doesn't result in like a trade war or an economic war?
Thank you. Okay, let's continue. 1 or 2 more. Okay, here on this side, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Qais Mohammadi from Afghanistan. We definitely know that Donald Trump in the presidential palace, the world is moving towards protectionism, and even better, we can call it mercantilism. What do you think will happen with the identity of WTO and international organizations like that when we see movement against WTO from countries that were someday promoting these organizations? Second question, we definitely know that security is a very important factor in developing the economy of countries. How can we achieve security from your perspective in my country, Afghanistan?
Okay, and final question in the back, please. Yes, please. In the back, okay, please. Okay.
Thank you very much. My name is Mkosi from Botswana. Today we are discussing global growth and economic sustainability. And so you did discuss that the developed countries are thinking of aid. What new strategies do you have for poorer countries compared to giving them aid?
Thank you, and then maybe 1 or 2 minutes response.
If you take Africa, it's not going to have the huge manufacturing sectors that China, or before that Korea and Japan, managed to develop in the last 50 years. Africa is going to rely for its future on its skills, on educating its people. And that is the way it's going to get its prosperity. That's the way it's going to get people into jobs. That's the way it's going to become not the poorest continent in the world, but become a prosperous continent. So education is the way forward for Africa. Now, I do apologize for having to leave. I mean, one of the great things about interdependence is I can speak here at midday, be at a meeting in London at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and be at home in Edinburgh by this evening. So and with a very good chauffeur who'll stand in for me if I fail to arrive. So we have questions from America, from Afghanistan, and we had a question from Africa. Do not give up on the World Trade Organization and its ability to resurrect itself, and that there are many countries who want to see it actually work. Do not feel that if the IMF and the World Bank and all these institutions don't look as if they're succeeding at the moment, that they will fail. They are, in my view, institutions that with reform can be very successful. And I leave you with this thought. In 1960, John Kennedy became the President of the United States of America. And he gave this inaugural address that people may, some of you may have read, which is one of the most famous speeches that has ever been given in the world. And it was all about international relations, about what we're talking. And he had some of these wonderful lines, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, which is about public service. Never negotiate from fear, never fear to negotiate. That was about diplomacy, far better than the threat of force that we've seen in recent times. He had the torch has passed to a new generation about you, young people, actually being the future of the world, and not people who were like me, past politicians. All this in a speech. Richard Nixon was the defeated candidate, you might know from your history books, for president, and he was asked, is there any line in this Kennedy inaugural address you'd like to have given? And he said there was only one: I hereby accept the office of President of the United States, which he'd failed to win. But in that Kennedy speech, there was another line. Ask not what, he said to my fellow citizens of the world, ask not what you can do for yourself, ask what you together can do for the freedom of mankind. And he went on to go to Philadelphia, and he gave this lecture. And he said America had a declaration of independence in the 1770s. It was independence, of course, from my country, Britain, and they got rid of us very quickly in the 1770s. He said, we had a declaration of independence, famous for 200 years and more. What we need now is a declaration of interdependence. And that's what we need. We need people who are prepared to stand up and say, look, the protectionism and populism will not work. We need to cooperate. China calls it the convergence of interests to bring about a community of interests. Europe talks about global Europe, in other words, Europe that is not insular but involved in the world. So the answer to the problems in America, and the answer to Afghanistan, which I've visited many times, of course, is that we need international cooperation to help countries in difficulty. We need international cooperation to build prosperity and growth. You will not have the levels of growth and prosperity and jobs in the world economy if you do not have international economic cooperation. We are in a new world. If you're interdependent and your economies depend on connections and contacts, then you cannot build the jobs and the prosperity you want unless you develop that cooperation more effectively through global institutions, through nations looking outwards, through trade agreements, through our ability to connect. And of course, one of the things that has changed dramatically is that you as individuals can be part of that process of making a more interdependent world, because your ability to connect with people in every part of the world. Some people say the internet is a shouting match without an umpire, and there's some truth in that. But it's also a means by which we can build connections and communications around the world. And this is, in the end, building trust, building respect, and building the cooperation that makes for a safer but also a more prosperous world. Thank you very much. I apologize for having to leave.
The Honourable Gordon Brown.